I think I'm going to be sticking around just until the end of Gren's run, but I will try to stay out of the way of the other runners who are coming in for Xenoblade X.
Hello, and yeah, this is going to be Xenoblade X. Um, so starting with Blue here. So at the very start, we are going to play as the main character is not going to be played that much, if at all, in this category. This is going to be the focus of the run. Elma starting with a much higher level and better arts. Yeah. So the first thing we're doing here is, well, you're going to notice that you build art. So you can switch between swords and guns in order to deal damage. And that's going to be a little bit more DPS at the very start of the run. Another very interesting thing you can do in this game is basically jumping is faster than running. So we want to always do that. And on top of that, if you're jumping while targeting enemies, you're also jumping faster. So we will try to do that as much as possible throughout the run. So yeah, welcome to Mira, a big giant planet. We'll have to explore a little bit of it. It's a nice little time save here. Right when you drop down, you pull your weapons, and that way you're able to cancel the full animation. There's no full damage in this game, but you still need to, you keep moving, and when you fall down, you have this superhero landing kind of deal. You kind of want to cancel that.
Shoutouts, no fall damage.
Yeah, this is the only game in the series that doesn't have it.
So the first objective here is to reach New LA. Once we do, we'll have our first interesting fight. Not much going on there. So as you can see, enemies have when you target them, there's this little green icon that pops up sometimes. This is appendages. So now appendages is going to, if you destroy it, is going to have special drops that can drop. And here, what's going to matter is the Cruxes that we're going to fight. They have some appendages that are way weaker than others, so they're going to take more damage if we hit them. And so we want to destroy the first appendages on the head to be able to hit the second one, which is going to allow to do the big damage. Okay, that's not something that they're going for, but it's a thing. Just know it's a thing. So regarding Elma's art, the big art damage with your arts. There you go. So that's the appendage you want to hit optimally. So you got the TP art, which is called Stream Edge. It costs 1000 TP. It's a little green bar next to the character display. It costs 1000 TP to use, and it's going to deal a massive amount of damage if you use a gun art right before. So right now we only have Slit Edge. That's going to be our main way to deal damage for the early game.
Yeah, TP is kind of like the party gauge of Xenoblade 1 in a way.
Mm-hmm. So you want to always keep, TP management is the big thing in this run. You kind of always want to have stream edge available when you want it, when you need it, and there's going to be some even bigger reason to build and manage TP later on. And for now, it's not going to matter too much because you only have one stream edge, and that stream edge is, by the time you get the cooldown back, you should have enough TP to use it again. It's worth noting that when you die, you lose all your TP, which is very, very unfortunate if that ever happens. So you really don't want to die in this game. So chapter 1, reaching New LA, we're basically just going to go on a tour of the city. Really not much going on. We're going to meet our first partner and one of the characters that is going to mostly stay in our party, who's Lin, 13 years old, genius engineer, who's working on those giant robots that you can see in the background. And the first thing we're actually going to do is we're going to remove all of Lin's armor and set it to Alma, because as we explained, and as it's going to be clear later on, Alma's damage output is more with her melee arts, well, it's the opposite for Lin, and Lin's gear gives extra damage for melee attacks, while Lin does the opposite, so we want to move that around so that we maximize our damage. So we start in the industrial district, and now we're in the administrative district, which is the upper level right now of New LA, and this is where most of the story is going to happen, and mostly in the Blade Barracks, which is our house basically, and this is where we're going to start all the major cutscenes.
You will visit the Blade Barracks quite a lot throughout the course of the story.
And it seems that the race is going to be able to start when so EMHC able to start.
Yep, so I'm going to interrupt real quick to say that Gren's run is officially done, so we'll be switching over to YMGC for the other Xenoblade X run. So I am going to hop off. I'm going to be back again in the morning for Xenoblade 3, so I'll hand it over to Xenoblade commentators. See you guys.
Take care.
Take care.
Alright, so first, chapter 2 is very simple again. Touring the city. Oh, yeah, chapter 2. Chapter 1. It's chapter 1.
Yeah.
Confused. So this is the online terminal that we just got able to see. It's going to be very, very important in this category. It's not so much in other categories, but oh, very, very nice topple on image sun screen. So topple in this game is kind of an interesting mechanic where you can topple from anywhere, but if you get a stagger before a topple, then that gives more chance for it. And when an enemy is toppled, it's going to allow you to deal a bit more damage, and on top of that there's a soul voice that can pop where a character is going to say, hey, I toppled this guy, go ahead and deal damage, and when you pop that, when you use your melee art from there, from that soul voice, it's going to boost your damage on that art by like 200% if you do it anywhere, and 400% if you do it from the back. So very, very, very good solos to see happen.
Alright, blue is starting chapter 2 now. And
is going to allow us to go through the east gate and do a pretty quick and easy fight. Still very much a tutorial moment. I really like the movement path that they're opting to go to NLA. Is it actually faster than the way I've always done it?
I'm not sure. I'm not actually too familiar with the offline run. I'm gonna learn it eventually, but
Basically, like instead of going up here, we are sticking to the bottom route.
oh, I see. Yeah, I think it can depend, I guess, because I've seen. I've actually been spotted by the Swedes as I've been taking that route when I've been practicing
Yeah.
myself.
I know that YMGC, who's done a lot of work on the run, has deliberately taken some very tight routes. I know that there are a couple he's pointed out during his runs. He says where if you're like a second off or just a fraction off to either side, you'll get spotted by the enemies here, and nonetheless he manages to squeeze through. So.
There we go. As I was mentioning, the strat to actually target the appendage right there. So there's a button in this game. If you press L3, you're going to focus the appendage wherever you are, and so that allows to actually focus the appendages that you want to deal with. Starting full card fight on blue. I hope you'll enjoy Uncontrollable because that's going to be the only instance of this theme that we're actually going to get to here. Interestingly enough, this is the second and only other fight where appendage is going to matter, and you kind of want to target either the head or the back. Oh, unfortunate chord here. So that means the boss is going to take a lot less damage when he's doing that art. Yeah, usually it's going to die on the second stream edge, so very quick fight.
And you also need to be kind of careful because he can stagger you out of your attack if you're not paying attention.
So if blue had actually focused on the correct appendages, he would have killed on the second stream edge, but because it targeted the legs, it took a little bit more time. And now, first tutorial for planting probes, we're going to plan quite a few throughout the run because the game is going to force us to do a lot of exploration. And one of the easiest way to do exploration is to plant Millennium probes. That's going to give you access to landmarks, and it's also just a very easy way to progress exploration. So if you've never played the game, basically every quadrant of the game, everything in the game is made out of quadrants, and for each quadrant there's going to be one objective that you have to do, either defeat a unique monster, or a tyrant in this game, do a quest, or
there's like a treasure in the field you could pick up from a container.
Yeah, pick up treasure, and obviously out of all three options, picking up treasures is very much faster than the other options. So we are basically just only going to pick up treasures or plant Millennium probes in order to progress our exploration.
And it's worth mentioning too that the this map that we've mentioned with all of the segments on it is actually always visible. Well, except in combat, but otherwise always visible on the gamepad. And these runners are actually going to be doing things on the gamepad. For example, while they're running in the field, they can also set up their next skip travel, which is also done through the gamepad. And it's just it can be really fascinating seeing managing two things at once, and I think it's very cool the game allows you to do those two things. Also during loading screens, you can work on the map And so you can set up a data probe while the game is loading the next scene. Just a very cool thing you can do.
Yeah, basically what you want to do most of the time is when you teleport to a place, you are going to set up the next one that you're going to do. So you have to very much be prepared for everything that's going to happen, to always be prepare the next stuff. As you can hear right now, Blue is already planting some probes, and yeah, instant quick travel. It's really something that you have to learn to actually prepare for all the teleports and stuff.
Yeah, definitely
so
have
right
to think ahead a bit. Yeah.
So right before we could choose the factions that we're going to be. There's like 8 of them: Pathfinder, Creator, Outfitters, Mediators, Harrier, Interceptor,
And prospectors, I think.
yes. So all of them is going to have some different small bonuses. They don't matter too much. The only one that matters is for Blade EXP. So every time you accomplish something on the field, whether it's getting collectibles, getting a treasure, planting marine probes, etc., you're going to see just below the wall map, the little icon is going to have a number displayed. That's going to be the Blade EXP that you're going to win. And Pathfinder gets the most out of exploration. And since that's basically all we're going to do throughout the run, Pathfinder is what we're going to choose, because we do need to hit some benchmarks on Blade EXP. Yeah, Pathfinder just makes for the route to work better in this category. In 100%, you would actually want to pick up Curator instead.
Because of all of the items you collect.
Yep.
Yeah. Since we are in Chapter 3, I guess it's a good time to start talking about the online component, since that starts in Chapter 4. One small issue, and I think it is specific to the Japanese version. Legrand, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the Blade experience you were just mentioning, in the Japanese, at least in the Japanese online version, if you are online and the group you chose has gained more points that day than it did the previous day, then it gets boosted, and you get double Blade experience from everything you do. So whether it's exploration, collection, anything gets you double experience, and the route is actually routed around having that double experience. So one thing the runners do, in fact did this morning, was to set up that boosted state for the... so they'll be able to take advantage of that once they get to the online, once that online stuff is unlocked.
It's actually already ticking. As you can see, every time you collect an item, you're getting 2 points, while normally you would only get 1.
Oh, okay, so it is already taking effect, yeah. So you don't have to actually unlock the...
The unfortunate part is that on the Western server here in like the US, we do not benefit from the double points.
Okay, that's what I thought I recalled hearing, that it's a Japanese version only. I have no idea why they took that out, but that is one unique thing to this, to running specifically on the Japanese version. They're able to take advantage of, and so cut out some exploration that might otherwise be needed to get those higher Blade levels. So the other far more important element of online is that there is a thing called a squad. Is it also squad in English?
Yes.
Yes,
I believe, yeah.
So.
Which is basically like a party in your typical MMO type of game, except that it's not, you don't play directly with them. What you can do is when you get a like a weapon or armor drop from a fight, you can then trade that to other people in your squad. There are other things you can do too. There are like squad missions and squad quests where you can collect rewards from those. But the important thing for the online run is being able to trade weapons. And so each of these runners has some support players along with them in their squad, or they will be joining the same squad as their support players when that's unlocked. And then those support players will be able to trade weapons And so what the support players are doing, in fact, I am also going to be participating in this myself, so I'll be ducking out of commentary a bit later. But what the support players do is they basically they know specific enemies that will get the equipment that the runner needs, and they just fight those same enemies over and over until they get a specific weapon with a specific affix on it, so a specific buff to the weapon's damage or other aspects of battle, and then we'll trade that to the runner when the runner has a chance to accept it. That is kind of the key point of this. What makes this online run a large part of what makes the online run different from offline is that the runner has an opportunity to get these high-powered weapons far ahead of without having to actually spend time farming them during the run. And so this actually, the way it's going now with blue a little bit ahead is great because I will have a chance to point this out before I have to jump over on YMGC's stream to help out myself. But we're in a little bit, when blue gets into chapter 4, we are going to see little pop-ups showing these weapon trades, and I'll try and point those out as they come up. But that is when that happens, what's actually happening is the runner is communicating with the supporting players on the side and saying, okay, please send me this weapon at this time, and the player then hits the button to say send, because the runner can only accept deals when they're not in skip travel or in a or in a cutscene or targeting an enemy, or there are a lot of conditions where if you try to send a weapon, it is just dropped. So there's actually a whole bunch of coordination that goes on behind the scenes to make this work, and it's just playing as a supporter. It's a lot of fun to try to help out in getting that all to work right.
Another
that will
thing,
be coming up in just a little bit on Blue's side.
Another thing with those treasure deals is other players can possibly sneak in and steal the deal from the runners. So it's important to find an empty squad where nobody's going to interrupt the run.
Yep, that's also an important part of setup. Is that the first thing we do is somebody, typically whoever's around will just randomly, since you can't start an empty room or start a private room. This game doesn't have any concept of private squads. Just keep hitting the random squad button until you find one with no one else in it, and then notify everyone else involved in the runs to say, I got a squad, got an empty squad, come on in, and hope that no one else randomly joins the same squad during the run, but you just have no control over that, and you have to hope that it all works out. Most of the time it does. But it is something that you have to keep in mind. And it can also be used for interesting effect, because one thing I have seen these two runners do when they race each other is they will both runners and all supporters for both players will join the same squad, and then they fight over the deals. And so you can have one. Yes, you can have one player say, one player support say, I got this really great, like a Phoenix, which is, we'll see it later. It is basically the ender weapon for Skells. But say, I got a great Phoenix with these two wonderful affixes, and then the other player just randomly steals it, and they have to go take it all over again. It makes some really interesting interplay. But this time, for this particular relay, they are in separate squads, and so they will just be the supporters sending direct to their runner.
So quite a bit of exploration that we're doing right now. We are mostly setting up for later stuff, because we will need to hit 15% exploration on Primordia, which is pretty simple. If you just go through the major places that you have to visit because we will need to visit the other continents later on. And the other reason we're doing that is because we want to hit level 9 on Elma by before the next boss, who is quite scary. If you are level 8, it's actually very, very inconsistent to do at level 8. His name is Glenar, and it's going to be quite the fight.
Yeah, I've actually seen a death before in one of their runs.
Yeah, it can be pretty tricky. And just like the movement here, pretty hard to maneuver around all those ledges and stuff. You can see that like the movement and exploration really predates what would become Breath of the Wild later on. And like I like to say, the exploration in this game really feels like a bit Breath of the Wild in a lot of ways. So before Glenar, we've got this scrub fight, pretty simple. As you can see, there is one art of Flint that is doing a lot of damage. It's Fire Carnival, and it's very big art. It's a mid-range attack, while R is Stream Edge. So what we're going to do during fights is try to stay behind enemies, because that's going to grant us extra accuracy and as well as more crit chance. So like a nice little bonus for everything. There's no such thing as aggro in this game, so no reliable way to stay on aggro or stuff like that. So we just have to.
There is a taunt debuff, but it's not really used.
Actually, it's even going to be detrimental when we're going to get it.
Oh,
wait,
yeah.
no, actually that's for the offline categories. The online category doesn't have any trouble with it. So turns out, so story-wise, planet Earth was destroyed by aliens, and we managed to escape with the blue whale and with our city of New LA, and we crashed on Mira while we were found by other aliens who were trying to destroy us. And turns out that this planet Mira that we are on is actually inhabited by some of those aliens that are trying to destroy us. So those guys are pros, and it's basically orcs. Yeah, we're investigating because there's a squad of Blade that got decimated around here, and so that's what we're doing here. We're going to try to investigate and find out that there's a prone base here, and we're going to defeat their leader, Glenar. So starting with the stream edge on the right guy, and with Fire Carnival, this should almost be it. On the kill, we really want to take down this guy really fast.
Usually the player character dies here. Don't worry, it's not over if that happens.
You know, player character is mostly on floor cleaning duties throughout the start of the run. They just start with really bad equipment and really bad art, so they really don't matter too much.
Yeah.
They eventually do get. They eventually do get better than the other characters, because they are not locked in the class. They can have access to all classes, all arts, all skills, even some skills that no other characters have access to, and some of them being really broken.
It just takes
Like
a long time to
Blue
get
is
there.
about done with Glenar.
Yeah.
That's a split, I guess.
And we're not going to get to see it, but this is where Tatsu joins the party.
Pote Tatsu. There we go. There he is. He is going to
There
give
we
us.
Yeah, that's our food supply for the rest of the run.
Yeah.
Give us access to the follow ball, which is completely irrelevant to the speedrun. Kind of a way to have a higher view of the current topography. It's not even that useful casually, but it exists. It's a feature.
Kind of neat, actually, but Xenoblade 3 actually uses like a similar mechanic. That's like the follow ball, and it's like a follow path toward the next quest.
Yeah, threes I used occasionally to kind of get around strange obstacles. I don't think I ever used it. I think I used it once to see what it was, and that was the only time I used it here.
Yes,
So yeah, this is actually okay. So Blue is now getting into chapter 4, and so this is where we're going to start seeing the online component come in. So here we see Blue is joining up with, with the, we set up ahead of time, friend connections and all that, and so joining that specific squad that Blue supporters have already located as a single squad. And so now the supporters will be able to trade weapons, but not quite yet, because we have to wait for a moment when Blue is just running around without any cutscenes, without any targeting, anything like that. Because as I mentioned, specific limitation. I think we will see it right here. So take a look at the top left corner of the screen. We should see a little pop-up, which is going to be the weapon being sent from Blue supporter. Should see one right here.
There we go.
Yep, there it is, and grabbed it right there before getting into this dialogue. So that's the communication that I mentioned earlier. The that's taking place off to the side between Blue and his supporters. It's saying Blue is saying, okay, give me, I'm going to be skip traveling here. I have 5 seconds when I'll be able to accept the weapon. So please send it during those 5 seconds. And player does. And so we see, assuming that nobody else has snuck into the same squad in the meanwhile, which we hope, Blue, in maybe a minute or so, we will see another pop up in the upper left saying that that weapon was acquired, and then it's just so. In the meantime, the player who sent that first weapon has now gone off to search for some other. Either weapon or a sellable item. Some equipment can be sold for a lot of money. So there we go. There we see the second weapon that was sent, and there's the first one obtained. So that's going to be a bolt element dual sword, which Elmo will equip for later fights, and particularly we look for bolt element with potential up, because potential is the stat that boosts all of your TP arts, and TP arts are the ones that do all the damage. So we try to get as many potential up a piece of equipment as we can. But that is the interaction that I mentioned will be taking place on in the background. So every time you see a little pop up in the upper left screen, that is probably one of the supporters having sent an item over, and then we'll be immediately going off to start farming out the next piece of equipment. So there are in total 5 pieces of ground equipment. So the two weapons. There's and then there's the money, which I was about to mention as well. So money is an important aspect, because the other thing about online, which I hadn't talked about yet, is being able to rent other players' characters. So you can register your own character with that online terminal that Legrand mentioned a little while ago. And then other players will be able to rent that out for 60 or 1 hour or 2 hours for a certain amount of money. And so if you can rent out like a max level, max equipment character, that solves a lot of your battle problems. And so we're going to do that a lot. But in order to do that, obviously we need money. We're also going to need money to buy a scale frame later on, but those two things both will eat up a lot of that. And so what these runners have their supporters do, aside from getting equipment, is also find some of these high-level sellables, so that they will be able to go in and just quickly get a lot of money, and then rent those scouts or buy that scale equipment.
And the reason money is going to be so important throughout the run is because we are going to abuse the scout feature. And scouts are very, very expensive, especially at very low level, because they are more expensive the higher the level difference is. And we're going to always hire level 60 scouts to go through the story, because they're going to be very, very good scouts. The very, very first one is going to be very expensive, obviously, because of that. So we need all the money that we can get.
As your level gets higher, the scout costs less and less money to use.
So it does look like MDC's just about to finish up Glenar here. So I'm actually going to go and duck out from him because I have a weapon to send myself. So I will be right back.
Right, good luck.
So during this section, it's mostly going to be a lot of exploration that we're going to do. So there is quite a bit of things that are going to happen before we actually get access to our skill, which is going to incredibly boost our movement speed. But until then, we're stuck on foot, and we're going to do most of the exploration right now. And the reason we're doing most of it right now is because it's going to allow us to get more money and more Miranium, more resources. Basically, every time we plant a Miranium probe, it's going to give more resources, but also every time you get a landmark and stuff, you're getting extra EXP. And that's actually a problem because we actually, when we're going to be farming for class level, which we never got to talk about, having more EXP is a problem. So every time you defeat an enemy, you're going to get some EXP, but also some class level. So classes is what is going to allow you to get some new arts and new skills. Pretty neat. And the thing is, you get more class EXP if you're defeating enemies that are way higher levels than you. So what we're going to try to do is fight enemies not for with high level difference, not for the EXP, but for the class points. And that means that if you get extra EXP from landmark and exploration, you're getting less class points as a result for the farming.
Yeah.
And that's why Elma is not in the team, because she's going to be the one who is mostly going to benefit from this farming of class EXP.
I believe Blue is collecting a collectible which is needed for a little bit later called Kirin Catnip.
Mm-hmm.
And that's required for a required affinity mission that will be done later.
Yeah, it's not too bad if he doesn't get all of them right away, but it can help.
Yeah.
There was also quite a bit of collection that was done throughout Chapter 3 in order to get multi-spec Ladybug, which are actually necessary at this point. That they do need, because that's going to be before in order to acquire the scale, which isn't, and that's why it's not so necessary for Kirin Catnip, because by then you will have a scale, and having a scale to get collectibles is much less problematic. Another treasure deal just now on blue side. So again, you cannot do treasure deals when you are in battle. That includes when you are moving around, because you are actually in battle, drawing your weapons and stuff, even though you're not actually fighting. So most of the time in the actual game, you're actually going to be in battle. The only times you are not going to be in battle if you are in New LA doing story stuff, which is very rare. So you either have to cancel out the fighting stance here, because you don't really have anything to target, though you can actually always be targeting something. Or you just wait for a very long time, which we cannot really afford right now, because there are so many items that are going to be traded.
Also,
Yeah,
Blue
of course,
has
it is fair to mention that yes, we could could say, okay, I'm going to stop here and let you send something, but we're trying to go fast. We don't want to be stopping every few minutes, because, as you mentioned, Legrand, there are a lot of things that need to be obtained during the run. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it is all about finding those windows of opportunity and coordinating to get those 5. It really is like a 3-second or 5-second window sometimes that we have to send those, and it's working that out.
Worth noting as well that like you can do all this run without treasure kills. So it's really just extra bonus, extra seconds that is going to be saved. So if you are going to lose a few seconds because you have to do that trade, then you're not actually saving that much time.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
So we entered our second continent. So there is 5 continents in this game. So we've got Primordia, which is the first one, grass one, and now we're in Noctilum, which is a tropical forest one. Pretty mysterious and cool.
We actually scout a little bit ahead for Chapter 4, while we're also getting deals at the same time.
Yeah, Chapter 4 and as well as Chapter 6.
Yep.
We're going to go that as far as that. Again, as I said, we are going to do all the exploration that is needed before we get a scale, because once we get a scale, we're going to be able to do exploration much faster. And
in this cave right here, there's an important treasure that gives, I believe it's a research probe G4, and that'll be useful for the prospector test for the scale license.
Yep. So regarding probes that we're not going to be able to see, but that happens when there's a hood. Every time you plant a probe, you can then improve it by putting a mining probe, which is going to improve the amount of miranium you're going to get, and as well as precious resources, which we're not going to have time to talk about, I don't think. The second choice is putting a research probe, which is going to give you money, and you're going to get a lot more money if you're going to get a research probe. In a place where there is a secret location or an interesting point of view. And so there's actually only a few places where putting a research probe is going to be interesting, and as a result, research probes are much rarer to get than mining probes. Mining probes we're going to have way too many by the end of the run.
Speaking of secret location, there is actually one coming up that we will discover. It actually has like a tyrant in there. I think it's a Caicus. Yeah.
Is there an actual tyrant? I guess.
Yeah, it's like level 28, and discovering that will also help for the Gel test. I've actually forgotten to discover this secret location, and I had to go back and do it. And that was a little bit of a time loss.
So we are now getting our scout, which was set up a while ago. So again, scouts are basically a new game plus feature kind of deal here in the speedrun, where we have now a powerhouse that can destroy anything on site. Because this game is very, very much ridiculous when it comes to damage output. It's really, really, really wild at what you can do. You can just have some setups that can one-shot like some of the biggest monsters in the game. It's really just really, really stupid.
Yeah.
So we are going to start the story chapter 4 quest. And chapter 4 is going to bring us to Noctilum, where we just were.
We're going to meet Lau here, but we're not going to have him join the party, even though that's what he wants to do.
Yeah. So Lau is going to be one of the major characters in the run and in the story. The reason why is because in order to finish the game, you need to... Well, there is the exploration part that we mentioned earlier, right? But there's also quite a few quests that you need to finish in order to finish the story. So some are pretty simple, some are also affinity missions that don't have that much requirement. And some are affinity missions that require you to have good affinity with some characters, namely Gwyn and Lao. So that's why we're going to see those two characters in our party a few times here and there, so that we can build the affinity that we need in order to finish the run with them. Thankfully, it's only up to like
1.
Yeah, tier 1, so it's not going to take very long because tier 1 is not long to get.
There's actually a really easy way to raise affinity, which we'll talk about later.
Oh, is it actually used in the run?
Yeah, it is. I think it's used in maybe offline as well. It's picking up a side quest, but the thing is, you don't actually do the side quest.
Yeah. Alright, before... So yeah, that rental just destroys those two guys. Very much unnecessary, but, you know, it works. Yeah, again, another treasure deal. 2 treasure deals for blue.
Blue is actually grabbing the secret location I mentioned earlier.
And we just planted the research probe right there. This is going to need us a little bit of money, of extra money, but also in order to get our skill on after chapter 6, we'll have to pass a test to do 8 side quests, and one of them is getting enough money in one Millennium tick. So basically, how does Millennium and research and probes work? So I think it's every 15 minutes, you're going to have a money probe tick. So all of your probes are going to give you some extra money every 15 minutes. This is actually very important. And I think maybe every 7, you're going to get some precious resources. Those ticks are going to be a little different. So one tick is going to give you some, and the other is going to give you different ones. It's kind of weird how it works, but basically it works.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, as I said, you do need to hit the prospector. In order to finish the prospector mission, you need to actually get a tick of money. And since that only happens every 15 minutes, you're going to have some moments where you're potentially stuck in a bad cycle and have to wait 15 minutes between the moment you took the quest and the moment you finish. And so there is actually a this whole early game up until the first hour and a half is going to be on a giant cycle around this prospector tick, and you're not going to be able to go much faster if you are in the middle of this cycle. And it's not too noticeable when you start running the game, because, well, usually you're going to be in the middle of the cycle and it's not going to be that bad. But when you start getting better and better at the game, you're going to try to make the one cycle earlier and actually manage to save time. And it's also pretty funny because if you're kind of slow, you're actually going to get more money as a result, and it's going to make the run easier because you've got more money and also more precious resources. So the faster you get, the more problems we'll have, and the more tight the run is going to be. Actually, it's a very funny mechanic that this game has.
Yeah, there's actually quite an infamous precious resource that'll be needed for later.
Mm-hmm. So this is not going to be that much of a problem because online has ways to mitigate precious resources. So that guy is just going to die. Yep. Thank you, Retro Scout. I believe they're actually using the same Rental Scout, right?
Yeah.
They play the same
I
time.
believe so. Yes, because they have a set of of known scouts of people who've set up specific specific builds. There are actually several builds that we use throughout the run. There's this this, for example, there's one build that's good for bosses. There's one that's good for the leveling segment, which I think Blue is about to get into here. There's one, there are a couple of scouts. You were mentioning the precious resource earlier. One of the things you can do with scouts is set them to give you that precious resource when you've used them in enough fights. And so there are a couple who are configured for that purpose. But yeah, I believe they will both be using the same set of scouts to run.
Yep, no reason to have a different set of scouts for two runners, as they are both available online, and since they are on the same region.
Yeah, it's not like like some MMOs where if your character is rented out by somebody, they can't be taken by anybody else. No, it's just as long as it's registered, any number of people can use them.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just costs a lot of money to use a level 60
Right,
scout when
yeah.
you're level 16. Like, it's actually like it's going to be 10 times less once we hit like level 45, level 50 to get a level 60 scout than what it is right now. It's really bonkers.
Yeah.
Oh no, whatever shall we do about this guy? So the interesting thing about this category is because we can destroy bosses just like that. Actually, fighting Tyrant it can be interesting in the routing part because, well, we can just take them down in one hit because of Friend of Scout. So it's not just triggers or Millennium probes that we can plan. So this means that like the routing, even for exploration, it can be completely different when compared to offline. Like, there's really very little things that are going to be the same because online has so many interesting features that you can abuse compared to offline categories.
And it looks like Blue has just arrived at where we will be doing most of our level grinding.
Yeah, quite a lot of Deluses here. It's pretty notorious, this place, because they're all dead. This is also a place that you probably remember in casually, because there is a quest that kind of requires you to kill 10 acid Deluses, which are Sus Deluses.
Yeah, it's called Off the Record.
Yeah, pretty infamous one, and yeah, you can just one-shot all of those, and you're good.
So yeah, we'll be killing all these Dillis for a little bit until we get to probably about like level 38, I think. At least that's when I stop grinding, and then we'll move ahead to scout ahead for chapter 6.
Yeah, level 38 is the point at which they will continue on with the run.
Yeah.
And so, as I mentioned, why are we fighting those guys instead of like one big level 60 enemy? Well, first off, there's a limit of HP you can get of 9,999, and those guys give each 4,000. So that's already more EXP, but there's also more class EXP as a result, because there is also a class EXP bonus of 30 that you can get if you kill an enemy. And all those guys are going to actually give the maximum amount, like it's so 24, 25 at this point to kill each of them. So it's really just more worth it for class EXP and for EXP to kill more enemies than kill one very strong enemy most of the time. Especially if you can one-shot all of them at the same time.
Yeah.
The only problem with this farming spot is that it's very out of the way. So, like, there is a question to be had as to whether or not it's actually worth going all this way around, but they've done the route in Xeno, and Xeno does stuff. I know that back in my days when I was running this category, I wasn't doing that and was just killing some big enemies and just dealing with the class issues later on.
When I first started learning myself, I just used any old random enemy I could find, and then I learned about this spot, and I just thought, oh, every other spot isn't that great.
Yeah, no, it's really just the best place, both in terms of EXP and in terms of class EXP as well. Just really fast.
So Blue has finished the grind and is now going to head toward an area we will go to in Chapter 6.
So yeah, very, very fast grind. It's compared to, so offline is going to have to do a similar grind in order to get class EXP as well, and also in a smaller manner, basic EXP. But we'll have to do it with basic characters. You don't have access to rental, so it takes about 30 minutes if you're really, really good, and this is about 3 times faster at least.
Technically, we're still not done grinding levels, but the rest of the levels will come from just the story.
Yeah, the story is very, very generous when it comes to EXP. Mostly because, well, levels don't matter in this game. When it comes to fight difficulty, what matters is the side. So yeah, forget about whatever you were told that like it's not the side that matter, it's how you use it. It's not true in this game. The bigger the enemy, the stronger he's going to be. So that's why if you've got a level 90 small bug, it's going to be really ridiculous compared to a level 65 giant whale generally. And then if you've got a level 99 giant big bird, then it's going to be a scary fight.
Yeah.
So we are just about to finish Noctilum exploration. So the reason why we spend so much time in Noctilum is because we have to explore 20% of it on foot, which is quite a bit, and requires quite a lot of moving around. It's really one of the biggest one to explore on foot. The other places are not going to be that much of a problem because we'll have a scale in order to hit the biggest requirement for the story.
Yeah, once we get a scale, the game is going to get a little bit faster than right now.
And then when you get to flying scale, then it gets very, very different.
Yeah.
It's really interesting because like if you've ever tried to do what we're doing in like the continent Selva on foot compared to on scale, you really feel like, oh wait, the place feels very, very different. So nice little skip here that was found by Prodo when she was playing casually. We can just jump here and that skips a whole giant section of the game, and quite a few cutscenes actually.
Yep.
So Yamaguchi-san doing the farm on his side.
Blue should be heading toward Goetia right now.
Yep. It's worth noting that rental is only available for a certain amount of time. I think.
I believe it's 30 minutes.
I think so. So you can see the little bar below the character name, and so you want to utilize that as much as possible throughout in the run. The next before the next chapter, we'll have to do story quests that won't have where you won't have access to rental because we'll have to have a full party of main characters in order to advance the story. So we won't be able to abuse that, and that's also why we kind of need classes. It's because we won't be able to always use rental characters to cheese through the story. We'll have to sometimes actually do stuff, namely in Chapter 6, actually. It's going to be the big one.
Yeah.
And so that means that you need to have some somewhat capable characters, because if you're on class 1, you're not doing that. You're not doing anything.
Yeah.
You really just don't have any buttons to press. You're just going to die. Well, on class 10 or even class 20, then for the main characters, it's going to be a whole different story, or have access to a very wide amount of options.
So before Goetia, we deal with these 3 prone, and then Goetia will appear along with, I believe it's Marnux. And this fight can be kind of difficult on a first playthrough.
Oh yeah, Gracia, it's really hard, and she is quite tanky as well at some point. So if you're doing it at like level 12, level 13, you are probably not actually managing to deal with it.
Cool thing that this game has in particular is if you die to a boss 3 times, you are given the option to lower the level of the boss by 5 levels.
Which again doesn't matter, because levels don't matter. What matters is the size, so it doesn't change
Yeah.
that much effect of the fights. And also, like, this game is really weird when it comes to levels. Like, you're not going to notice the level difference too much when doing anything, because like it's very much irrelevant, and every other mechanics is going to matter a lot more than levels. So that mechanic we're not going to be able to see for a while, but really one level or two is not going to make the difference. What's going to make a difference potentially is for hit rate, because hit rate scales with levels, but even then that's not too important.
So what Blue just did was equip different arts than what Elma had previously, and these are the most useful arts for her to use for the whole run.
Yep.
Because, as we've stated before, we're not able to use the scout for the whole run. Renewed Will is actually coming out in a second, and we'll be forced to use Arena instead of the scout.
Yep. So you're always going to have your main character in your party that's forced. Then for pretty much all the story stuff that we're going to do, we're going to have Lin and Elma in the party. And then if you have an extra character that has to be part of the team for affinity purpose and stuff, well, you're going to have to use that character. And since there is only 4 characters available, well, Serentel Scout will have to go.
I believe also Blue just entered Bolivia in Planet of Pro, but that's actually required for starting Chapter 5.
Yep. And so if we want to talk a little bit about the arts that Alma has right now. So first off, we're going to go to Commercial District because we need to go there multiple times. And well, actually, it's where the affinity mission that we need to do in order to trigger the next story is. So the big art that we're going to see Alma use a lot is Blood Sacrifice. So every time you use Blood Sacrifice, you lose half of your HP, but that gives you 1000 TP. This is the most reliable, simple way to get TP in this game, and you can use it pretty much anywhere as long as you are in a fight. So say you see a random enemy, you start a fight, use Blood Sacrifice, and then if the fight ends, because the enemy is too far away or the enemy is dead, you can reuse Blood Sacrifice. So pretty easy way to build TP. On top of that, if you are going to to change your equipment, change your arts, change your skills, your art cooldown is going to be reset, so you can reuse Blood Sacrifice. And also, if you change your party or make it look like you change your party, then your art cooldown is also going to reset. So that basically means that thanks to Blood Sacrifice, we can always have a maximum amount of TP.
Yeah.
That's very, very good art.
Another thing that changing your party does is it also will heal you to full health, and sometimes as you're exploring the field, you might take damage from, let's say, the terrain or weather. Yes, this game has weather that actually can affect your stats, and it can be positive or negative.
There's even some weather that is going to change your potential stat, and that's going to change a lot of the ways the fights are going to play out, because 1 point of potential is actually a big multiplier in your damage. So when you get, for example, a potential of 5 bonus, which just gives +5 potential, that's going to boost your DPS incredibly hard. And so yeah, right now the weapons that Yamaguchi-san has, Blue has, are completely broken and gives a hella potential. So very, very easy fights to do right there.
Yep.
You know, this is why I was mentioning when we're searching for when the supporters are looking for weapons, we look for potential up weapons because they do this much for us.
Yeah.
Worth noting that you're not supposed to have potential up weapons at this point of the game, but since its tutorials exist, well, it's easy. So good HFI starting for Yamaguchi-san, closing out the gap between both teams.
So we're actually almost done with Renewed Will on Blue's end, and we have to fight this, I don't know how to pronounce this enemy name for the life of me.
Orvis?
Yeah. And now, since it's complete, we can start Chapter 5 whenever we want, which, well, obviously is right now, but if you're just playing casually, you might want to do, like, side quests or whatnot. Because you really have a lot of freedom in this game compared to some of the other games.
So the main reason why we want Blade EXP is because every time you get a Blade level, you can talk to Eleanor here, and she's going to give you 1 level in either mechanical, biological, or archaeological, depending on what you want. And what that means is you're going to be able to get higher level probes or higher level treasures, and therefore do exploration a little bit better. So right now on this run we're only going to care about mechanical, because that's what's going to matter for Marinium probes, and that's going to affect our way to progress through the exploration. Biological and archaeological are only going to give mostly just battle points, which don't matter too much in this category anyway.
Yeah.
We'll have enough. So skill setup, I'm just seeing it in Yamaguchi-san screen. I think Blue is definitely going to have the same, but we are setting up a skill called Hellhound, which is going to be really, really neat when Overdrive is going to be unlocked. So at base, you only have 10 seconds of Overdrive, which isn't that much before you're able to actually build enough count to actually do stuff, especially with low tier setups like what we have right now. Hellhound is going to give you 5 extra seconds at level 1 and 1 more seconds every level. So this is a very, very big boost of the amount of overdrive time you've got it really makes a difference, especially at the start.
Yeah.
Really goes to show how like Full Metal Jaguar, which is Elma's class, is just really good. It's very simple to set up overdrive setup, and very simple to use once you when you kind of know what you're doing.
Yeah, it might seem kind of overwhelming at first, but
Oh, totally.
yeah, once you know what you're doing, it's not that bad.
Because like the big problem with this game is you don't really have any good in-game tutorials. So if you're only using in-game resources, or like when it was day one of the game, and when you really knew what you were doing, well, it made for stuff to be really hard sometimes.
My only recollection of Overdrive playing it, I did start playing early, but my only recollection of Overdrive was I hit the button, 10 seconds later it's gone, I have no idea what happened. So
Same.
yeah, for the longest time, until I actually started seeing some of the speedruns, I never had any idea how to use that, so I just kind of muddled through the fights where it expects you to use them.
Yep. That was my experience as well. Vivid memory of finding the final boss with only Slit Edge as a damaging art on my character. Everything else was healing arts, and I was just stalling the fight.
Dang.
It was something. It made
So
me
in
take
chapter
like
5,
10
we
to
meet
15
this.
minutes to defeat the final boss, and it was just stupid.
So in chapter 5, we meet this alien race called the Manon, and
He's a fan.
their ship was actually shot down by the Ganglion. And the Ganglion are trying to enlist the aid of the Manon.
But we're going to save them instead. And as we mentioned earlier, weather can change your setup and stuff. And right now we have Aurora Borealis, which is the best weather you can expect in the game. On blue side, it's going to give you a potential boost of level 3 here. It's really good. A nice Heathorn.
There's actually a better weather for the run, but it's not going to be that useful because, well, it'll be in Sylvalum, and the scout will also be. I think the scout will be ranged attack focused, maybe. This is for chapter 9, by the way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's an even better aura that can happen. And sadly, so every time you change, you quick travel, this is going to change the weather potentially. And so as you can see, this weather is gone. And yeah, now we've got our rental back, so stuff are dying fast. And it's actually a different rental from what we used in the farming section. This one is more focused to deal with bosses. And so single attack over AoE attacks.
Yeah.
So
Going back to the
is
weather, if you get a weather that is not a good situation for like what you're doing, you can just fast travel, and usually the weather will change.
Mm-hmm.
There's a weather in Noctilum that can lower your potential, and that can be kind of annoying when we're going to head there for chapter 6, because I think it usually is nighttime when we start chapter 6.
The net weather effect only happens at night.
Yep.
And I even believe that Telesia on the third phase actually triggers that weather, because like they knew that like potential is so important, so they intentionally make it so that this weather triggers or something.
Yeah.
So that was the 3 turrets that were blocking the ships. And now we are going to head for the final boss of this chapter. Because, well, the mans are going to be kidnapped, so we have to save them.
Yeah, so Manon will be off in the distance on this cliff. I believe we actually see like gunfire after that cutscene, so there will be like a visible, yeah, there it is, notification of that's where you need to go.
So a little bit of climbing to do once again. Have to be clever about it. So Yamagishi-san also right on the tail of Blue, starting chapter 5 as well.
Yeah, it's actually pretty close, and despite Blue basically at the end of chapter 5.
So the next fight we're actually going to fight Strigmoviz. This fight, you might remember it casually. It's pretty hard actually, and it's also the final fight before you get access to Overdrive, which is going to, well, if you know what you're doing, it's going to trivialize everything. If you don't know what you're doing, it's not going to affect anything. But the game kind of expects you to use Overdrive, so from there the game kind of gets much harder.
Yeah. The next quest we have to do actually has a really tough enemy as well for first playthroughs.
It's I actually don't even know how I managed to defeat it casually without nursing the Overdrive, but I did somehow.
Yeah.
Sure, it was a fight, and I know that it stopped people from playing this game quite a bit.
Yeah, I was stuck on that fight probably for like an hour. Also, after the fight in chapter 5 here, we get teleported back to the city. The main character loses their arm trying to protect Tatsu.
It turns out we were a robot all along.
We actually recruit Lao here and finish the chapter with him to get a small bonus of affinity with him.
Yep.
Whenever you finish a quest, be it the story or just a generic side quest, you'll get affinity with characters. They don't necessarily have to be with you for the whole quest. So now Overdrive is officially available, and I don't think we actually use it until chapter 6.
No reason to use it, yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, no, you would use it on the next mission, because no, Lao is not in your party for the next mission, so you can have a rental. Never mind.
Yeah. So the next mission that has to be done is called A Friend in Need, which is required to be completed for chapter 6. And that'll take us to Oblivia again.
Yep. No, nope. Wrong table.
Yeah, I've accidentally clicked the story terminal before.
Yeah, movement is actually pretty hard to do in the Blade Barracks, weirdly enough, because like there's a button to sprint, and basically what you have to understand is you should not sprint inside the barrack to do pretty much anything, which is kind of weird and really hard to get used to.
Yeah.
Alright,
We
so
kind of have a long journey to get to where we're going. I think we'll grab a tyrant along the way, which is conveniently placed on the route.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh,
There's
you're
actually
not
quite a
even
bit.
grabbing the Marion probe all the way up there. Funny. Because that place over there is very much used a lot in the offline run, because it's like we go there for farming on top of a bunch of other reasons. And let's get over there. We want to hit the leaning ring that you can see in the background. Very, very beautiful game, by the way. If you've never seen it, I hope you're enjoying the view. This game is just gorgeous. And really, really fun to explore too.
Yeah.
It is. There's just so much to find in this game. I will actually say that when I started doing this this supporting, I actually encountered a couple of areas that I had never discovered in my in my casual play. You know, several hundred hours of casual play, and yet had never found a couple of these particular areas, which I thought was just really funny. It's
I actually
that that detailed, that extensive a world.
I actually have a story myself. I didn't discover a area which is actually here in Oblivia till like a couple thousand hours in, and the name of this area is called Demon's Pocket. It doesn't really have anything of interest for, well, survey, but yeah, it's near Heartmut the Calamity, and it's pretty well hidden.
Mm-hmm.
I think I hit it once, casually, but yeah.
Yeah, I may well have missed that too, but
Yeah.
there's just so many. You know, it's so great, and it's really built so well too. I mean, you're talking about how beautiful it looks, but just the design of it, the way things are hidden off to the side so much, it all feels. There was just this excitement of rounding like a corner of like a side of a mountain or something and seeing, oh wow, I never imagined something like this could be here. It's really, you can tell the amount of the effort and the labor of love that this game really is.
IMG is just about finished with Chapter 5.
So once you hit Leaning Ring, funnily enough, if you teleport to that same place, you're teleported all the way to the back of it. So quite a bit of time save movement-wise.
Yep. So right here, we're going to have to kill 6 Forfexes that are kind of blocking the path for where we want to go.
Pretty notorious fight in offline category, because you're kind of squishy and you kind of want to kill them all at the same time. But this is not going to be a problem here because of rental.
Yep. I usually like to aggro all of these guys here because the scout I use for this particular mission has a Gatling gun, and it's just a massive AoE attack, which usually kills them all.
Yep. So yeah, this next fight of Vision is pretty scary. Again, as you're going to see, it's very big, so obviously it's going to be very strong. Packs quite a bunch. And if you don't understand overdrive, well, I hope you've got scouts.
Yeah. Its most dangerous attack is one where it jumps in the air, and usually I think that will one-shot somebody. and I think I forget whether it's like frontal arc or AoE or something.
I think it's just frontal. But yeah, very very easy fight. And while we were while the rental was dealing with that fight, considering the next boss fight we're going to have to do is going to be without rental, we actually need to set up overdrive. So that's basically what Blue was doing there. Is just taking the time to set up their 2P. Not quite there yet. You need every time you want to use overdrive, you need 3K TP. So that's the minimum amount of TP you can get, like 3,000 out of 3,000. I mean, and on the equipment that we received from supporters, we got some max TP up, which gives you more than 3,000 potentially, which is very convenient. Like, it's definitely one of the best equipment to have, is to be able to have more than 3,000 TP. So that way, when you use overdrive, you actually still have some TP remaining to use TP arts, or even just to get to 3,000 TP much easier, because that way, like every time you use overdrive, the overdrive button, every time you spend the 3,000 TP, you're going to get 10 extra seconds of overdrive, more if you've got Hellhound equipped. So basically, what you want to do with overdrive is once you hit the first overdrive button, you want to take the time to build 3K TP again, to use that again, so that you have enough time to actually do whatever you want in order to build a count. To go a little bit more in length about how overdrive works, so every art that you're going to use that is going to hit something is going to give you 1 point in your counter. The higher the counters, the more effective your arts are going to be. Namely, so like the yellow and red arts are going to only be there for damage. So every time you use a green art, you are going to, every time you use an art that's going to do hits, afterward is going to have to give you a double count. So say Sliding Stinger gives you 6 count, because that's 6 hits. If you use Primer right before, that's going to give you 12 counts instead of 6. Why does it matter? Well, every time you also use a green art, you get half your amount of counts in your timer. So say you're at count 50, if you use a green art, you get 2.5 seconds. If you use a blue art, you get 5 seconds. And when you're using purple art, which is a final kind of art, every time you hit, you're going to get 0.1, 10 times the amount of TP multiplied by the counter. So say you're at 100 count, you're using Side Slash, which has 2 hits, that's going to give you 2,000 TP. So basically, you want to build that counter to be able to use purple art that's going to give you back TP, so that you can use TP art again whenever you want, or just repress the overdrive button. Also, all the cooldown are going to be much lower the higher the counter is. So as you can see, that's a recast thing. Right now it's at 3 multiplied by 3. It's going to go up to multiplied by 10. And that's going to allow you to basically spam all your buttons really fast. It makes the game ultra active when you get to use overdrive and utilize that properly.
Your arts also will do significantly more damage than if you were just not using overdrive at all.
Yep. So basically, like, it's going to be a 500% additive multiplier, and because that's such a big bonus, it's going to make every other damage multiplier pretty much irrelevant, except if you're boosting potential, because potential is going to be their own multiplier. And also some auras, very very specific aura that we're not going to see. Oh wait, no, that's fine because this is level 38, but that was really low HP. Easy fight, easy win.
So we just finished with the Tainted Sphinx, and basically we're done with the chapter. All we have to do is head back to NLA. And actually, normally in this cutscene that we're skipping over, you get to see the strongest enemy in the game.
Or most iconic, definitely. If you've ever fought, so it showcases Dallas as the Endbringer. It's a required boss if you want to do 100% mirror survey, and it's a three phase fight. Really hard, really tense. Lots of HP. It's not the biggest HP pool of the game, but it's definitely up there, and it's really a very interesting and challenging fight to tackle. Definitely the hardest one of the whole series, for sure.
Yeah. So after chapter 6, there are a few options that you can do. You can obviously start preparing for chapter 7 if you want. You also can get the scale license, and it's usually best to get a scale immediately rather than later, because it just helps for increasing your movement speed overall. And scales also make it easier to jump higher as well, because just jumping on foot won't be as high as jumping in a scale, for example.
Getting a scale just becomes your top priority when you get access to it, because it just makes everything go so much faster.
Yeah. So right here we add Gwyn to the party, and Elma is released, and we actually pick up this side quest, which is called Frontier Spirit.
Movement is hard sometimes in this game. It's just so finicky if you miss your landings and stuff. It's going to be even more stupid once we get our scale too.
Yeah.
So yeah, every time you have some prompts on the screen asking you to like say something on a fight, on a discussion, depending on your choice, it's going to change the affinity that you're going to build with your character next to you. And so that's mostly how we are going to build affinity throughout the run, and it's really just the most effective way to do it, outside of support missions, which are only available after chapter 12 is completed.
Yeah.
Well, there is technically a glitch that exists, where if you're starting a file with another file already cleared, as long as you never save, you'll have access to support mission. So right now we could see that Blue had access to support mission despite not having cleared the game. And so something that supporters have been doing while all of this happened is they have been killing a few monsters that were on the bottom right.
Yeah.
So the reason why is because that's when you kill them, it's going to give you some reward tickets, and you can trade them for some materials. And we traded the just reward tickets for what we needed in the run later on. Avoid having to do some farming and stuff.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Yamaguchi-san is dealing with Tainted Sphinx himself, having trouble building back some TP. Needed to use blood sacrifice there.
Speaking of TP, I actually tried chapter 6 with just 3,000 TP, and it is pretty stressful, so I would recommend the max TP up by this point.
Oh yeah, for sure. You at least want to. You can craft as level 5 augment pretty easily. So starting with 3.9 thousand TP makes it bearable. I just say that.
So looks like Blue actually rolled a little bit of good RNG. For the Harrier test, you have to kill a Tyrant. And there is one issue. This Tyrant does not always appear.
Yep.
And
so yeah, if it doesn't appear, then you have to reset until it appears, and it's pretty annoying.
yeah, it can be a big time loss if you just have bad luck.
So yeah, right now we are doing the side quest that you mentioned for the scale license. So we've got 8 to do. The Pathfinder one we already cleared because that's the landmark that we already hit. So that was the harder that we just did. Pretty quick just to do that Tyrant. This is the Outfitter quest. They require us to use one specific type of weapons. There's a trial weapon. I think it's going to be the trial knife that is equipped here. And so as long as someone lands a hit with that given weapon, this is going to
count for the objective.
The quest. And so Outfitter cleared, and right now we're doing the Curator one where we need 15 items in the Japanese version. In the English version, that was changed to 8 rock armadillos.
Yeah.
And I think in Japanese it's Nocturne and Dragonfly that you need 15 of.
Yeah, the rock armadillos are actually placed in a convenient area. And we're going to go, I'm assuming this is the cave that normally has the Nopon caravan in it. And this is where the rock armadillos normally are in the English version. And we're also going to do the interceptor test as well.
So interceptor requires you to kill 12 Bladas. So having trouble targeting. This game just has some bad targeting system. It's really annoying sometimes.
Now I think there are at least there are not 12 Bladas in the cave. There are
7.
Yeah, so you have to respawn the area to reset their spawns. Kind of annoying, you can't get them all in one cycle, but I mean, you just take what you can get.
It's still 2 cycles, and in the English version that means that you've got more chances for rock armadillos anyway, because 8 rock armadillos is still quite a bit, and it usually takes, well, the first trip when doing exploration 1, and well, 2 trips through the cave to actually get all of them.
Another collectible that we might need, which actually can be found in this cave system here, is called a Noka Mirstone. It's actually needed for the mediator test.
Yep. That's the only requirement for the mediator quest that we're going to take. So in order to finish the mediator license, we need to clear one of 3 quests, and the 2 others are just really inconvenient to do.
Yeah.
I think one of them required you to go to Silvalem, pretty much.
One of them requires getting enemy appendages, so you would need even more reward tickets if you did that one.
Yeah, it's just really bad. The one that we're going to do, No Mana Need Apply, is just really fast and very simple. And also it leads to the best lore part of this game, which is that Manans are not really interested in technology or whatever, because they've got their giant ships. They're much better technology-wise than humans. But what humans have that they don't have is pizza.
Yep. Oh, fun fact, I actually had pizza tonight, so that's kind of funny.
Man food. And so it's really funny because once you have the Manons immigrate to New Los Angeles, there's a pizza restaurant in the commercial district, and if you go there, it's crowded with no buns. It's just
Yeah. So
and
Blue is heading for a little alcove which has the last collectible needed for the curator test.
Yep, it's called Big Flea Squashes, and the other way to get Big Flea Squashes is either this alcove that we're going to, which is very, very convenient. You're going to see why in about a minute. The other place is Lake Bessel, which is all the way to the end of Oblivia, which is really, really inconvenient to go to. And this used to be what I used to go for back in the days when I didn't know this cave existed. And so hopefully it's going to be in one try. So Big Flea Squashes are pretty rare to find still. Then they have a good couple tries to get all three of them. And
Usually you're
So
going to
another
have to go back to the probe site for
that's
another
already
round.
2 in one round.
Not too far, at least. It's another location that I never knew about until I watched the speedrun.
I never knew
Never
about
have
it until
wandered
someone
back to
told me
go
about
out.
it. And was like, hey Doofus, why are you not going to this place in order to get collectibles? I was like, oh, this cave exists. Nice. Back when the run was about 9 hours long and we were doing 3 hours of grinding, that was only 30 minutes. And yeah,
I believe Blue still has to complete the prospector test. So
Yep.
while we're waiting on that, we'll be doing the mediator test.
Yep. So we have Pathfinder cleared, which was a mining probe that we already planted. Interceptor, which is the top lattice. Harrier, which is the boss that we killed. Outfitter, which is the knife thing that we did in Primordia. Curator, which is items that we already got. Then we'll have Mediator that he's not doing for some reason.
I think this is actually survey for chapter 7.
Oh,
Yeah,
wait,
there's
no,
some
is it
surveys
this
as
one
well,
for?
yeah.
Oh, and yeah, there is it's not Retriever's name. But for that one, you need to pick up a special treasure that takes no time to get.
Yeah.
In Noctilum. And so yeah, as I explained, if you start going too fast, at this point you're kind of blocked because, well, there's nothing to do at this point. You just have to wait.
Yeah.
Yeah, the ideal is you get the income from from Frontier right around now, so that you don't then have to wait for it to come in. There was one funny case where Yamagi-san was doing a run, got the income at the exact, I think it was probably the exact same frame as completing one of the other license tests, and it didn't count. It didn't count. So it was then either wait for 15 minutes or reset, and he reset. It's an unfortunate bug discovered in a run.
Yeah.
Really, really hard to trigger, so no wonder no one found it. That was a really fast cave on Yamaguchi-san side.
Yep. Yeah, that was
catching up quite fast, actually.
Yeah.
They're pretty much neck and neck at this point. And if something goes wrong, Team Agnes could take the lead.
Yeah, as we said during Torna, despite Samu having the worst luck of his life, it's still not over. It's a 24-hour run. Everything can happen.
Yep.
So make sure to
just
pull
the
the right
update, by the
options
way.
in this game.
on the supporter side, I assume Blue's supporters are done collecting equipment. I know on Yamagi-san's side, we've also finished equipment, and now we're back into the money collection, which is a lot easier on the supporters because from this point forward, there's going to be lots of opportunities, and also the the particular equipment that we send over to sell is a very common drop. And it can be any equipment that's worth enough money, not a specific type with a specific affix, etc. And so at this point, instead of coordinating directly, we just watch the stream for a moment when he's not targeting something or he's not in the cutscene, and just send it over. And ultimately, it all works out. So this is kind of a this is kind of the the hard part's done. Now you sit back and farm money basically.
Yeah, this good man dancing around the pizza stand.
Yeah.
Truly the best thing the Americans could bring over, right? Like, it's not going to be technology, it's not going to be anything, it's just pizza.
Absolutely pizza.
Yeah.
It even leads to a quest way later on where there is a man who is going to try to be a deputy for the aliens. And his big thing is that they're going to change the economy so that it's based on pizza, and that you can trade pizza for everything. And and there is some other aliens who are like much smarter, is like insect like aliens, and they're like, yeah, we need to make that guy lose as much as possible because this is going to make everything absolutely terrible if that happens.
So right here, Blue is waiting in the hangar. Normally, this is where Walter will spawn, and that's who you talk to officially receive your skill.
Yamagi-san having a bit of trouble there with the with one of the tyrants. Normally, what you expect there is you target the tyrant, attack it, and the scout, the rental scout, will just immediately demolish it. But for whatever reason, it's the bad RNG or whatever it was. The scout was not cooperating, and so it lost a lot of time. Normally, all of these tyrants, we mentioned earlier the segment map and getting completion points for killing tyrants, and that's what part of these are. These are supposed to be really quick ways to get that percentage up, but unfortunately, a bit of bad luck there.
And we didn't have to wait, thankfully, that long on the prospector test on Blue's side, and now he officially has a skill.
Yep, it's a giant robot time that can also turn into a car. Because America.
So there are a few things that we can do here. So I believe Blue is actually grabbing a scout for Enduron lead, which is important for I believe it's the matchmaker, right?
Yep.
Yeah, you need at least 3 Enduron lead. And
Enduron lead. So a very interesting feature of this game is when you kill stuff with a given scout, kind of depending on the class. Actually, yeah, it's depending on the class. If you're doing stuff with this the scout, you're going to actually get a reward for it. And it turns out that you can get Enduron lead this way, using a scout, which is pretty neat. But you cannot use that in offline categories, so you are fully relying on RNG in offline because of that, and it can just kill your run not to get Enduron lead. Because you just have, again, it's just like the money tick, you have to wait for the material tick to happen, and you have to pray for it to drop Enduron lead. And if it doesn't happen, then your run is cursed.
Yeah, it can be kind of unfortunate.
I've lost so many runs to that. Really, really not fun.
And then again, now that we have a skill, there's just going to be a lot of exploration, and this is another point where the things get a little bit easier for the supporters, because when you're in a skill, it's no longer fastest to constantly target things and jump like you are, like you do outside skill. So you're just walking around normally, and so you have plenty of opportunities to collect on those deals in the upper left.
You
And
still
it's just a
kind
lot
of
of,
need to
basically
be
what
careful
what
because
the
if
runners will
enemies
say is
spot
just, you know, just send things when you see me running around, and ultimately you end up with enough.
Yeah, and at this point, since it's just money, if you lose, if you somehow manage to lose the deal, it's fine. You'll get more later, I
Yeah.
suppose.
Yeah, it's like I think 5-7 minutes of just straight running, driving around in a Skell, and that's plenty of time. It's because, as I mentioned earlier, the drop is really easy to collect. Basically, you just shoot Hayred, and so if you've played another Xenoblade game and you got destroyed by Rotbart, this game, playing as an online supporter gives you a chance for revenge because you just farm this game's equivalent of Rotbart over and over.
Yeah. And it's actually located fairly close to NLA.
Yep. Especially at night, it's just lying down on this, on this outcropping of rock. You just go up there, shoot it, get out of scale, return to scale from the menu, and it respawns it, and over and over.
Yep. I believe the armor from Hayredin is actually the most expensive thing you can sell.
It's not quite the best. There's some weapons that will sell for more, but the advantage of always going with the armor is that it's all in the same. The armor is all the same value, and it all shows up in the same menu. Because weapons, of course, have their own menu. That when I started doing sport, that was actually my thought. I saw a drop for like 40,000, and so sent that over. And I said, no, I understand, but the armor is much more convenient to sell. You just mash A through the list, and the armor is still 36,000, so it's very close to the best you can get.
Yeah.
So we take, you ignore the slightly better armor for a benefit of ease of selling.
I believe he also just completed the prospector test, so we kind of got good luck on both sides.
Yep. Yeah, Yamich-sen won't have to wait for the prospector tip, at the very least. And he's finishing up Mediator, and once he finishes Mediator, it's going to finish the Sky License quest as well.
Yeah. So, before we make any actual progression with the story, we kind of need to get some of the survey taken care of. And we actually, I think, handle the survey completely before we start the next required affinity mission, which is Close Comrades.
Yep. There you go. So now
The thing with the exploration is you want to collect as much as you can on each individual trip because it takes time to go back and forth. So as long as you're already exploring, pick up as much as you can feasibly before going back.
Yeah. Now Blue is heading to Sylvalum. We actually wait until now to go to Sylvalum because, well, going on foot is miserably slow.
I can speak from experience that yes, it is miserably slow.
It might be
how I
fun
got
to
there in my
go
casual
there
playthrough.
immediately, though. However,
I was very smart and took Fry's side quest, Affinity Mission, before getting the scale casually. So I had to go all the way to Sylvalum. I was forced. Nothing to do about it.
At least it wasn't Hopes, which, well, takes you to Caldros.
Oh, yeah.
You enjoy that, yeah.
Yeah. Caldros is normally the final continent that is visited and runs. However, after completing Chapter 3, the whole map is basically open to you, so you can literally go there then if you want. For Sylvalum, we need at least I think it's 15% survey, right?
15%, yes.
Yeah, for chapter 10.
So it's going to go really fast. For chapter 9, we aren't just going to grab one mining probe and then we just basically just rush to Koldros, basically. It's going to go really fast. We sadly won't get to see much of Silverland.
Yeah.
As cool as the place is.
Yeah.
And if you're thinking, hey, this is a cool snow place, this is not snow, this is spore.
Yeah.
So hopefully you don't have any allergies going here.
Yes, indeed.
Sylvom actually has my favorite area theme in the game. The night theme is honestly really good. And if you haven't heard it, I encourage you to go look it up.
I personally still prefer Oblivia Date, but
yeah, that's still good as well.
I mean, there's a lot of good music. Let's.
Oh, 100%.
Honestly, most of the area themes in this game I enjoy. It's just they did a lot, really good work on the music.
Yeah, again, it's Hiroyuki Sawano-san on the OST, and he's got his own style, very, very noticeable. If you've ever listened to like OST or Mob Psycho or all those games, all those animes, you definitely recognize the style. But it just works. It's just so good.
So Blue landed a probe, which is very close to where we need to go for chapter 9. It's kind of out of the way, but it's honestly worth just going for.
Well, we need to go there anyway, so may as well just finish the exploration for it.
Yeah.
So, thankfully those guys are not going to aggro you, unless it's a specific weather, and then those giant, enormous monsters are going to target you. I don't remember the name right now.
The Coronid.
Coronid, yeah.
And I believe you actually need to kill the Tyrant there for 100% survey.
Yep, you do. And it's really funny because if you use his stomp attack, which is really fast, you just die. So sometimes you just start the fight from far away because it sees you even from the scale. You drop down from the scale, and then you just die before being able to press any button. It's a great experience to do it in 100% speedrun. It's not. I hate this guy. It's probably my least favorite boss fight to do.
Yeah.
In the run.
Can't imagine.
Like, even Telesia feels more fair.
Yeah.
And it has his amount of bullshit. So you're just getting the Miriam probes, getting all the way to the end, and then we're going to hit Koldros.
We kind of have to be careful not to get spotted by like overly powerful enemies, because if they destroy the skill, that will result in a time loss.
Oh yeah, if you lose your skill, that doesn't mean that you have to buy a new one. It just means that you have to go back to the barrack in order to get it back again.
Yeah.
Usually, even though you're going to be targeting by this guy, even if you are, usually by the time it's going to attack you, you're going to be out of his range, so he's not going to aggro you anymore. But you can still potentially die, as I've seen in my last practice run. I died about right here. So it might look like there isn't much distance to get to the Millennium Probe, but there is actually quite a bit on foot.
Yeah. And this is actually the entrance to Koldros right here. So it's actually pretty quick if you have a skill when traveling through Sylvan compared to on foot.
Yeah, and this is incidentally also generally the point where runners say, I've got enough money, to the supporters to say, you can stop here and just relax and watch the run. So on blue's side, the supporters are probably just sitting back and watching blue finish it out. Whereas on Yamagi's side, we are currently collecting money to send over.
Yeah.
As I am doing right now.
So we actually need, for Cauldros, we need 10% survey for Chapter 11.
Yeah.
And
10% is really nothing, so we're barely going to explore any of Goldrose here.
Yeah.
And it's pretty good because most of Goldrose exploration is actually done through killing bosses, more than anything else. There's quite a few monsters to kill here.
Yeah.
And well, considering it's the final area of the game, most of the enemies here are pretty high level.
Yeah. Ooh, blue got
We
spotted
just
by
run through them.
Garrett. And a lot of these enemies, yeah, can basically destroy your skill in maybe 1 or 2 hits. So it can be very risky to get spotted.
This scale is really fragile. It's a level 20 scale. So basically you're in a level 20 equipment right now. So if you got hit, you basically just die. And like so we are going to change scale frame because we need a better scale. And we'll get to scale level 30, the best scale level 30 actually, because it's going to have all of its armor have extra thermal damage, and the way we're going to deal with enemies that are high level is with a thermal art that is very strong. So getting the thermal scale just makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's going to be the good old enthusiast.
And the art that will deal most of the damage is called the Phoenix Wing. And it's an area of effect attack that hits
Very
about,
powerful.
it hits about 3 times, I think.
It hits 3 times, yes, and the area is pretty huge.
It's going to be pretty visible.
Yep.
There is a small downside to it in that it inflicts taunt. So if it doesn't kill every single enemy that you're fighting, you might be in trouble.
Yep. But then again, the power of Phoenix is so good that like you're going to be fine.
Yeah, generally you'll be fine. Also, that is that issue of possibly not killing the enemies is one reason why, as supporters, we always look for when we're farming skill weapons, look for weapons with ranged accuracy up. So basically, everything we get, we want it to have range accuracy up, and maybe something else, range strength or heat, because Phoenix is heat element, and so or thermal, I guess, in English, and and so that boosts damage. But we want that accuracy because otherwise, if you look back on say Yamagishi-san's channel, I think he's got a clip of missing Gwyn 3 times in a row in a Chapter 11 quest with Phoenix.
Oh, I can confirm that that quest is difficult with a shop Phoenix.
Yeah.
Well,
so it's
so yeah, you can buy Phoenix in shops, but it's really not that great. But it does get the job done most of the time. And otherwise, well, if you don't have, if Phoenix doesn't get the job done, then you can still use Overdrive, and Overdrive is still generally going to be higher damage than your scale. Like basically, if you need, if you can destroy it in one burst with your scale, it's better. But otherwise, at least in the offline, you would just pop Overdrive, just do press a few more buttons, and then you kill with Executioner, and you're good.
And in online, you pray to the scout.
Yep.
Online, you don't really have the opportunity to. Well, relying on Scout is nice, but it's also not so nice because that means it's kind of inconsistent how fast it deals damage, because obviously you cannot play as a rental Scout.
Speaking of scouts, we're not able to use a scout for this mission because Doug will end up joining the party for a fight.
Yep. But what
And
about the Phoenix? And so that's a Phoenix that was not bought but farmed by the supporters, like most of the scale gear, and it's pretty good Phoenix, I'm gonna assume.
something really important, actually, for close comrades is to know what time of day it is, because if you get to the fight where Doug joins you and it's nighttime, there is a very high level enemy that can easily destroy your skill.
Yep.
So
And thankfully, there's a BC camp right next to the mission, so you can hit that in order to change time. Because unlike every other Xenoblade game, you cannot change time in this game anywhere. You have to hit base camp, or you have to hit a bench in ULA, which makes for changing time very inconvenient. Also, not right now you can see how annoying it can be to actually park your scale.
Yes.
yeah, it can be really funny.
So generally, with your scale, you want to park it as a car because then you don't have any animation when you drop out of it. But that means dropping in the form that has the highest movement speed, and there is no break in this game, so it can get really, really hard to actually park properly and be as fast as possible. It's near impossible sometimes. There is quite a few places where I personally give up on trying to land properly, and I just drop from the standing position because it's just so much easier.
Speaking of skills, something that a lot of players don't know about is you can actually reverse in your skill if you're deriving it. And while it might not be very useful, it's just a cool little detail that's there.
Wait, you can reverse? What?
Yeah, you hold like ZL, and if you're not like moving forward, you'll end up reversing after a certain amount of time.
That's so cool. That's absolutely useless, but that's so cool.
Yeah. So Blue is just about
I'm
finished.
not sure if I knew about that because I try to avoid the car form whenever I can. It's so difficult to control.
Blue
Especially
is
Enthusiast,
finishing close comrades here.
So the problem with Enthusiast compared to the urban scale that we had before is that it doesn't turn. It just doesn't turn. If you want to turn, basically the best way is to go in standing form and then turn as you go back in car mode, which is kind of what you could see on blue screen. But that means that you have to angle well when you're sick.
Yeah, scales actually have different top speeds for driving and also different handling, as we just said.
Yeah, so for example, the Layla has some really, really good handling. A little too much when you are used to something like the Enthusiast that just doesn't turn. It really just doesn't turn. That thing is a tank, that's it. Very, very good for damage, but it doesn't move really fast. And
it is. I'm not sure if it's the fastest or second fastest, but it's certainly up there.
But the Layla?
The other fastest one I'm thinking of is the Ares, which is actually post-game that you're able to use. And the Ares also has decent handling, but yeah, again, it's post-game, so it's not going to be really useful in a run like this, because obviously the run ends.
Right, we stop at the end of the game,
is completed.
Yeah. And fun fact about the Progress, it's actually impossible to get it if you don't have online.
Really?
Because it requires to get some reward tickets for some other materials for it.
Yeah, so the only way to get an Ares 90 if you're not playing online is actually 100% survey.
Yep.
And at that point, it's not even worth it because you've already done everything.
Because you've already done all the stuff in the game, yeah.
Well, not quite. You don't have you. There's quite a few unique monsters that you
Well,
don't
true.
do this 100% survey.
That's true.
Oh yeah.
So, for example, Farsis Zero Queen you never fight. Just to give an example that people might know. And yeah, when you hear this game 100%, you get a nice little image that you get to post on social medias, and 3,000 reward tickets. Pretty
Yeah, I
good.
think it's 3,000 or maybe it's 5,000. I don't remember.
I'm pretty sure on the 3,000.
It's still pretty a significant amount, regardless.
Right there, Yamaguchi-san managing to park pretty well and then missing the plant multiple times. It's too bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
That
Got the
plant
hard
is
trick,
just,
the easy one. It happens.
again, getting blocked by good things. It can be really
Yeah.
tricky sometimes to just maneuver around.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and yeah, by the way, that was Amandel.
That's Goetia again from Chapter 4.
Yeah.
Samarkand Witch.
Yep, that's a good line.
Mm.
No one knows what Samarkand Samar is, but Elma seems to know.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's quite a bit of lore that no one ever knows and learns about. I don't even think that Samar is... Actually, no, Samar is mentioned at the very end of the game.
Yeah, I believe it's in the final chapter where we learn about them.
Story... This game's story is really weird. If you're playing on... if you're enjoying what you're seeing about Xenoblade X and you're playing on playing the game, just bear in mind that the story is very lackluster, and what's interesting about this game is really more the lore and the side quest and learning more about species and stuff than the main story.
Yeah.
And the exploration too.
Oh yeah,
I will admit I play through this game, and I'm definitely kind of a story. I don't. It's not like the main thing I look for, but I do put a lot of weight on it when there is one. And so seeing something it was as if I can say it, as sloppy as this main story was, it just really demotivated me to play. So I set it aside for like 5 or 6 years. Then came back a couple of I think it was watching your stream, Legrand, saying, "Oh yeah, this has a really neat exploration component, doesn't it?" Went back in, and then the end of the next week, I had like 100 more hours playtime.
The game is
So
really,
yeah, so
really
if
fun
you
to
so
play.
kind of look aside from the main story and just enjoy everything else there is to enjoy about the game, there is a whole bunch that's worth experiencing.
Yeah, you even get to say that you're an Elma person to Elma.
Oh,
Yes.
so this game has heart-to-hearts like Xenoblade 1 has, and a lot of these heart-to-hearts are actually required for 100% survey.
All of them are, actually.
Yeah. Well, except Lao, who this is an option.
You don't have to get those one for some reason.
So right here, blue is on Spy Games, which is an affinity mission required for Chapter 9. We're kind of in a affinity mission gauntlet here. We'll do 3 of them before we start Chapter 8.
Yeah, so the main reason we're doing them now instead of before is that I'm gonna say I think it's because it's taking the route from the offline category. Because well, there's you can do it anytime, and the reason the offline does it now is because before Chapter 8, which is the next chapter, you need to clear Matchmaker, and Matchmaker is a quest that requires you to have the Undrun lead. So even though it's not a problem for online because we've got our rental scout reward, in offline you want to delay Matchmaker as much as possible because you want to have as much chances at Undrun lead as possible. Because even despite all of that, you can still wait maybe an hour to get your Undrun lead still, if you get really unlucky. And
Yeah.
pain.
So the second mission we'll have to do. Well, we don't technically have to do it, but The second one is called 9 Lives, and it's actually Gwyn's first affinity mission. And you actually need to do both of Gwyn's affinity missions for Chapter 11.
Mandal coming up for Yamaguchi. Yep, the Saint Scout.
Still pretty close, despite like being basically like a whole mission ahead.
Yeah, Yamaguchi playing really, really well throughout the run. Catching up slowly and surely every time there's a little bit of mistake or sloppiness from blue side. Like every time you see anyone on their screen just staying still and not doing anything and then teleporting, that's because that's a menu that wasn't anticipated by the runner. Because as we explained, when you are in a loading screen or idling on the game, you can still use a gamepad. And so basically, generally, what you want to do is when you are teleporting to a place, you want to prepare for the next teleport. And that's a big thing to keep in mind throughout the run, just to make sure to always prep for the next menu. Always thinking about ahead of time. Okay, so I'm teleporting to the Manon ship now. Next time I need to go to the commercial district, so I click Manon ship and then I go to commercial district, and it takes quite a bit every time. It's really what makes this run super interesting. Is there's really zero downtime. Well, in most Xenoblade games, because there is no cutscenes, like there is no downtime. But this time, even in loadings, there is no downtime. Like, it's insane.
Yeah. So after spy games, Lao should have all the affinity requirements needed for the matchmaker. If Lao does not have the requirements, then something was done wrong with the affinity choices.
Yep. And right now, this is 9 lives. So 9 lives, there's a cat that's gone. It disappeared, and we got to find the cat. And yeah, that cat is actually in Primordia, and so we're going to get. So remember the catnip that we mentioned at the very, very start. That's when they matter, because obviously to base a cat, we need to use catnips. It's a pretty funny quest, and the reason why this quest kind of matters is because after that you get access to pets in your blade barrack, and so you can have either a cat or dog, depending on what options you have, and depending on what cat is in your blade barrack, that's going to trigger some different hurt to hurts potentially, on top of having a cute little animal in the barrack.
Some of the heart-to-hearts won't spawn until you have the certain pet selected.
Yep. And potentially most of the hurt-to-hurts with pets are actually any day. So if you have the requirement for the hurt-to-hurt, the character is not going to be available until you do the hurt-to-hurt, which can be a little bit annoying if you don't know where to find them.
Yep. Yeah, sometimes finding those without just going to a FAQ or something can just be really difficult, because there's so many places they could be.
Oh yeah.
It's like trying to find a stuffed lobster in all of New LA. Like, it's so hard.
Yep.
That quest. Yeah, so that's pretty infamous for a side quest in this game, and basically what you have to do for this quest is find 99 stuffed lobsters that are kind of like, well, they're like bombs in a way.
Very small and scattered throughout New LA, yeah. And yeah, good luck.
Yep.
So probably.
I mean, they're small. They're tiny, and you don't even get like the little lock-on pop-up until you're really, really close to them. I think some of them you just flat out can't see from Skells.
Yeah.
You really just have to walk the entire the entirety of NLA. Keep a close
It's
eye out.
usually easier to see them at night as well, in my opinion.
Or just know where every one of them is located because you're running
Right?
100%.
Yeah. Just happen to know ahead of time. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was pretty fun to route them in 100%. I gotta say, it gets less fun when you are at a point where you're supposed to have 65 and you're noticing that you're at 64. But that's
No. Yeah. So which one did I miss?
Yeah, that's the worst. And I think I actually have a story when I first did that quest, and the one I was missing was like right behind Bose, and I was just laughing when I found it.
Oh no.
Because that was like the last place I expected it to be.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, like the lobster quest is kind of split into two halves. In the second half, it kind of intends for you to have the flight module. And I believe the last lobster is scripted to appear once you have every one but that one.
Yep, and also you need to finish defining immigration for reasons.
Oh yeah.
So
We're on the
it's like one of
matchmaker
those-
now, by the way. And
Yep.
this is where you would need the Enduron lead. And if you don't have the Enduron lead in an online run right now, do not start this quest because you cannot get a scout in the party because of Lao.
Yeah, and
Yep.
of course you can't cancel the quest once you've started it. So.
Yeah, that's a really annoying
Yeah.
thing with this game. And unfortunately, like, if it's not like just a generic basic mission from the console, you have to basically finish the quest.
Right.
Yeah. And even then, if you're like waiting for chapter 8, this is the last thing that you have to do for chapter 8, and you're like, yep, well, I have to wait for this, and I'm just going to wait for this.
Yep.
Just can stroll around ULA until you actually get the tickets. Yeah, pretty frustrating doing a speedrun of this. But that's not going to be a problem that happens too much until you hit top times, really, in offline categories. In online, you've got ways because scouts, but in offline, you're kind of stuck.
So in the matchmaker, we actually get pizza again, which is kind of funny.
Yeah.
And
Matchmaker just finished. And
Blue should be able to start chapter 8 now.
Yeah, Yamagaki-san just starting Matchmaker as well, so really, really close to Blue.
Yeah, just that one quest difference now.
Chapter
And that
8
quest is really, really short too, because it's really just a commercial district for like, and then man ship just to 3 quarters to get pizza, and then get pizza, go back to the man ship, and done.
Chapter 8 is a
I wonder
little
if
bit
we're going to see them
different
both in the
than
3-minute
previous
fight together.
chapters because it locks you in the city, because the Ganglion are actually attacking the city, and they actually want the Vita, which was what we found in chapter 6. That's the name of the mech, by the way, the Vita, and they're planning to steal it from us.
Yeah, because turns out it's that mech that we got on chapter 6 is a relic from ancient times, and a very, very powerful scale or whatever, and we're just going to destroy it with tiny guns.
Yep.
That's the story of this game.
I believe right here we actually just encountered the longest load in the run.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And
for whatever reason, this one cutscene at the beginning of chapter 8 just has huge load time.
Yeah.
Yeah, so don't worry about it if you see a 1 minute long load. It's normal.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
you learn to expect it.
especially if you're on the physical version of the game, it can sometimes take even longer to load as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This chapter is really just a few fights and then a bunch of cutscenes and a bunch of loadings for our runners. It's really not that interesting in a speedrun because, well, Phoenix is here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Here we're gonna have lots of opportunities to see the Phoenix. Yeah.
And now is 3 minutes of nothing.
Yeah.
So you have to wait for 3 minutes, and nothing you can do about it.
If
I
you
think
kill
I'm
all the
pretty
enemies,
sure, but
they will respawn after a certain amount of time.
it's about a minute.
Yeah.
So it's a perfect moment to. Sorry. Go to the toilet, take a break, whatever. Have fun.
So basically, we are building our teepee here for the boss fight of this chapter.
Oh, that's interesting. You're not using Skull Overdrive.
Yeah. You can also use Scale Overdrive as well if you want. I personally go for that because I'm not used to doing the chapter on foot.
I'm pretty sure it's faster to go for Skull Overdrive anyway.
Yeah.
Especially if with a busted Phoenix, because we're doing that on offline with shop Phoenix, which is the worst version of the Phoenix. I'm pretty sure that just going for overdrive with Scale and in 2 Phoenix, you're good.
Mm-hmm. So after the survive for 3 minutes section, there will be 2 more enemies we have to kill, and then we will fight the boss of the chapter.
So Yamaguchi-san also starting chapter 8. It's really, really close. At this rate, if
I
you
wonder
can
if
do
we're
this,
seeing them both in the same fight here.
I think it
The
might
blue
have,
still
but
has a minute to wait out.
cutscene loading. Just
The
might
cutscene
take
loading
forever.
time. Yep. Yeah.
But yeah, we can see if it keeps going. Team Magnus might be ahead after the end of the game.
yeah. Some of the late game fights, well, one of them in particular, can be very, very annoying, and we'll get into that when we get there.
Mm-hmm. Yep, here we are, same fight.
Yep.
So that difference in time you see is exactly the difference between Team Kevis and Team Agnes right now. Is it 2 minutes and 26 seconds?
Yep.
So that's come down like almost 10 minutes from the beginning of the run, hasn't it?
Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
During Xenoblade 2, I believe it was about 18 minutes at most that they were behind.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Just goes to show anything can really happen, even in the rest of the games, not just this one.
Yeah, right. Even in the space of a single 3-hour run, that much time can be made up.
So this chapter also has a lot of cutscenes you have to skip, which can be kind of annoying, but yeah.
One thing I'm interested to see here on the right is if Yamaguchi-san, he's doing it. There's a single frame trick you can do to get in and out of the scale without going through that animation you were mentioning before. Normally, there's animation when you get in, when you get in or get out. With a 1 frame accurate input. See if he does it again. You can actually get in or get out with 0 animation.
How do you do that? Because I've never seen that.
My record,
I've seen it
I've never
2 or 3
succeeded
times
myself.
now.
Yeah, I've never succeeded myself. I think the way it's described is you turn around and press Y So like reverse your left stick and then press Y on the same frame, and that confuses the game because it doesn't know how to do the. So you try to do it here.
Yeah, it
But
seems
the game
pretty
doesn't know how to
precise.
do both animations at once, and so it just skips the getting out animation entirely.
I'll have to try that. Yeah, Yamaguchi-san is really knowledgeable about the game, a lot of things. He was actually a playtester of the game before
Yes, he
got
was.
released.
Yeah, he was working with the company that was contracted to do testing for this game, and so he was doing speed runs before speed runs were a thing in this game.
Oh wow!
Not deliberately to speed run it, but just because that was the easiest way. He wanted to get through and test as much as possible, as quickly as possible, and so worked out a lot of the initial speed run tech just from that desire to get things done.
And Blue has just defeated Dogon and Reese, and the chapter is essentially done. All you have to do is just skip the rest of the cutscenes.
For about 2 minutes.
So, if there was anything more for the runners to do on their touchpads, they would have plenty of time to do it here.
Oh yeah,
these loading.
but sadly the map is like locked to the area.
Actually, yeah. When you are into sections, the touchscreen is locked, so you cannot do anything.
Oh, that's
You're
true, right?
just
The specific
working.
one doesn't let you. Yeah.
Yeah, this chapter is like different compared to like every other chapter.
This chapter is do what we say and nothing else.
You can also say this chapter is bad.
You could say that.
Well, it's cool story wise, kind of, but when you're doing it in a speedrun, no.
Yeah, it's just annoying.
Yeah.
So you want to get past it and get on with the actual fun running stuff.
So after chapter 8, we just start chapter 9 immediately, and we will actually be able to pick up another scout when we start it. Chapter 9 is actually pretty difficult on a first playthrough.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and again, it's going to be a scout specifically tailored to the upcoming boss fights.
Yeah.
Because again, each different boss has different different resistances, etc. And so there are actually several different scouts tailored to each of those bosses, not just a single one with the most powerful skills. Because one thing is that if you have too many skills on a scout, each one has less chance of being used, because to a degree the game will select randomly which skill to use, and so you want to try and limit it to the bare minimum of skills you need for that scout to be useful. And so for that reason, you end up having multiple scouts tuned for each of the bosses. And it's really been interesting to watch some of the discussion that's taken place, like Yamagi-san and Blue and a number of other runners, mostly supporters actually. The main runners, I think, are Blue and Yamagi-san at this point on the Japanese side. But a lot of the supporters have also been chiming in with suggestions. And just watching that discussion, seeing all of the things they've been working through to try and fine tune these fights, get them to go as absolutely fast as possible. It's just really been fascinating.
Yeah. Another thing with chapter 9 is Lao actually becomes unplayable after this point. So like if you're on just a casual playthrough and want to do anything with Lao, you want to do so by now.
So fun fact, because of auto requirement for story, there's nothing in the story that is going to advance that is going to block 100%, except getting the segment recon for Lao. You can actually hit the 1 hurt on Lao without ever recruiting him on his spot, and therefore getting that segment recon. So if you play, and that's actually funny, because in the current 100% route, it's actually a problem. So you have to take the time to talk to Lao to actually get the segment recon.
Wow.
Yeah.
That would
Well,
be a bit of a downer. Get all the way to the end, then discover there was that one that you couldn't get because you were too fast.
Yeah.
I have to actually check if there's if like you after chapter 11 you do have access to it or not, but I don't think you do. I'm pretty sure you don't.
So we meet Gajarg here and the Rothians, and this fight here actually does not allow usage of a skill. And so if you're heavily dependent on a skill, you might be in trouble. However, for the Visara, you're able to use a skill if you want, but normally we don't. Yeah, as you can see here,
You had just use Scout.
the Scout just wipes the floor clean with the Visara.
And Fasar is pretty interesting fight because if it goes down to half HP, it's going to spawn a bunch of ads, so you really need to one-shot it and closer.
Yeah.
He also has a skill at low HP where he's going to change the weather to Meteor Storm, which is going to deal damage over time. It's pretty scary overall.
Yeah. So after Chapter 9, the flight module becomes available to grab, but we actually start with Manhunt, which is required for Chapter 10. And where Manhunt ends basically places us right next to the hangar where we start the flight module quest.
Very convenient. And so, yeah, so Manhunt is going to be, we're looking for Riz and Dagan again, because they managed to escape when we defeated them. And somehow there's a location of like a girl and a really tall guy that was found in Noctilum, so we're going to find them. Turns out it's not going to be Riz and Dagas. Instead, it's going to be Basgirl.
Yep, Celica.
Celica Fire Emblem. Oh wait.
And Rock.
Don't forget Rock.
Yep. One of Celica's signature arts is actually called Black Bane, and it's honestly one of the most insane arts in the game, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Because it boosts damage based on the amount of debuffs the enemy has, and the game will actually crash, I think, if there's at least 16 debuffs on the enemy, I think. Or maybe
Really?
7. Yeah, it's really, really silly.
So yeah, going on our way to...
Something important for Manhunt here is picking the right dialogue option, because if you pick the wrong one, you get in a fight that you can normally avoid, and that's just a small time loss.
Yeah. Because like most of the time you want to always pick the first option because it's the fastest one, right? And so it's always there. The other times that you don't want to pick the first option is because of affinity reasons. But there is quite a few places where missions are going to branch depending on the choices that you pick. And so you want to be aware of that when rolling and also running.
Yeah.
Make sure to hit the branches that you want to hit. Because there is some branches that are really, really bad compared to others. Thinking about the Lynn's affinity mission, where if you pick the second option after the first quest, you've got a whole second side quest to do. Well, if you don't have to do anything anymore.
I think that's for the repair job, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty annoying too because it's collectibles to pick up, and oh my gosh. The other one like that's very funny. It's like the Corvin quest that we picked up earlier, and we never finished because we just picked it up for Affinity. At the end of the quest, like Corvin goes like, "Oh my god, I just received an emergency call. I need to do something," and we're like, "Yep, okay, sure. Good luck. The mission's done." And so yeah, Silica and Rock, here they are. Silica is great.
Yeah. She becomes available to recruit as a party member after Chapter 10, I believe, is completed.
Yep. Yeah. Actually, well, it's the Affinity mission that was right there, New and New LA, and
Yeah.
Silica has also access to one of the best art in the game, which is called 00. So
I actually use a scout with 00 in my run, and it's mainly for the last 3 chapters.
oh, nice.
Yeah, it works pretty well, but sometimes there's an occasional hiccup.
Oh, that's just what happens with AI in this game, right? Like,
Yep.
Yeah, sometimes the AI is not perfect.
Yeah, I mean that's why in the route document that I think I forget it was Blue wrote up or Yamagi-san, one of the two wrote up a route document. In the last few chapters, every fight basically is that I don't know if you touched on the command. You can command your AI party members to do certain things. You can like command them to all out attack and then pray to scout. It's the final thing in the notes. It's basically you just have to hope the AI does what you want it to do.
So something that we needed the reward tickets for were 2 collectibles, which are actually needed for the flight module quest. And the collectibles are called Upgraded Coil and Lightspeed Jet Fin. If this was an offline run, we would have to go to the enemy that normally drops the collectible and get it that way.
It's it can be very annoying because those drops can take forever sometimes to drop. I've lost sometimes like 5 minutes to get these 2 drops in offline, but in online you can just use tickets. Well,
Yep.
easy.
And after the flight module, we start Chapter 10. And Chapter 10 actually is kind of interesting, especially on the first playthrough, because you fight a gigantic enemy.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Very, very big, lots of HP, very, very strong, very scary, but
Yeah.
we got pea shooters. It's fine.
Yep. It'll all work out.
Yeah, so
There was and actually that fight can even change the layout of of Sylvalum.
Yep.
I've seen I think
So
it was on Cross that tweeted about it a few weeks ago. It's like so like there is a bridge on the way in Sylvalum that can or cannot be destroyed, and if it's not destroyed, you can land on it just fine, but you just cannot return. I think it's
Exit your
return from
it's for whatever reason you can't exit your skill when on that bridge, but
Really interesting.
yeah, it's weird. Also, there are 2 bridges that can be destroyed.
and you cannot save
one.
2, I think.
And the boss will actually, in phase 2, that's normally when the bridges will get destroyed, it will go directly to Lake Seal, and I believe it stops there if you're like slow.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're even that slow, then he's at some point he's going to fire a giant mega laser towards New LA. That does nothing, but it still exists and it's a cool animation.
So in the last few chapters, like a lot of these bosses are kind of split into 2 phases, and it's honestly kind of predictable after like the third boss you fight. And for phase 1 of the upcoming boss, you only have to get it to half health, which is nice because I imagine it would be really annoying, especially on like a first playthrough, to get it down to 0.
Yeah, usually at this point, like you've got 4 people in a scale casually, and you're going to fight it from your scale. Very epic fight, very long. It turns out the hitbox is so big that you can hit it from the ground, from very very far away. And
Yeah.
you know, since overdrive is a thing and it's very good, we're just going to use that instead.
Mm-hmm.
Well, actually, that's for offline. In online, we're just going to use a scout. And since we don't need to use scout, then it's also all good.
It is interesting how casually you get the skills, you see what the skills can do, and your first instinct is, yeah, this is what I'm going to take into all my fights. But ultimately, it turns out that dropping the skill and just fighting from the ground is the more powerful method once you tune it.
Oh yeah.
And scale can actually out damage overdrive, but you need some very very specific kind of equipment to manage to do that.
Yeah, and this game actually has a couple damage caps, and skills can't do more than 9,999 damage in one hit. So you can design a skill build to basically kill all but 2 enemies in the entire game in one shot. Now, you can still kill them in one art, it just involves like a different setup.
So yeah, Zufar here, big giant robot, very big.
Yeah. So if you notice, the blue is just sort of sitting around doing nothing. It was waiting for the scout to attack, but the scout could attack from all the way up there where they were.
Yeah.
And yep, there goes the scout again.
The chapter actually ends here in Sylvalum. You don't have to go back to the city. And so, what's next is boot camp. And that's the last thing we need to do before we can just rush the end of the game.
So boot camp is, despite being very simple, it's also very very technical. I would say it's very very easy to lose a lot of time in boot camp.
Yeah.
So boot camp is going to be the affinity level 1 mission for Gwen, and because it's an affinity mission with an extra character, that means that we won't have our rental anymore. But that's fine because Scout is going to be good enough. The problem is, well, you'll need to hit the ranges on the enemies, and actually now thinking about it, it won't be that much of a problem in online because you've got a busted phonics.
Yep.
Everything should be a one shot. Just like that.
And Gwen goes down easily there.
As long as you don't miss.
Oh, of course. Because a shot Phoenix will have problems in this mission in particular with the Swedes and in Gwen's rematch as well.
Yep. Yeah, that is why we farm out those accessory range accuracy up rather. Because misses can be a real thing if you don't prepare for them.
So earlier when we did the scale test, we had to damage certain enemies with a certain weapon. That's basically what we're doing here as well, but for like 6 or so different enemies. And it can be kind of annoying because there's so many enemies in the area when you use your Phoenix. If you don't kill them immediately. Because I've actually lost a skill here because I was so slow.
So yeah, that's the first 2 Suids killed, and then we'll have to kill 2 more Silver Suid and Femina Suid. And back to Outfitter, and we'll be good. Yeah, really close, really neck to neck.
Yeah, I was about to say.
Both in the same quest now.
So chapter 11 can actually influence on who's possibly ahead or not because of the gimmick of the boss of the chapter.
Oh yeah.
If the scout is not perfect, the boss can actually activate these 2 modes called range mode and melee mode, and it can only be damaged by either ranged attacks or melee attacks. And so if it activates the wrong mode, you get basically a time loss.
Yep.
It's a 50-50 too.
But yeah, it's one of the things that they've the runners put a lot of effort into tuning the scout to make sure that scout give that scout as good a chance as possible to kill the second phase before it starts. Before it goes into one of those 2 modes.
Yeah,
just kill that right.
Because it's a 50-50 chance on whether you get bad luck or not.
Yep.
So it's very dangerous. Also, I believe Chapter 11 is where we grab the final scout of the run.
The same scout will be used for the last 2 chapters.
Yeah. And there's actually, a skip of sorts that we do in Chapter 11, which is pretty interesting. Basically, we discover like a location that normally we'd be able to fast travel to, but for some reason, I think this location out of all of them in the entire game does not allow you to fast travel to it. But if you were to die, for example, you would be teleported to this location, like it counted or whatever. So basically, we're going to like teleport inside, and it will save like a significant amount of time.
Right, because normally there's this entire dungeon you're supposed to go through, no skill, of course, just walking through normally, and you make your way all the way around. It's one of those things where you have to open the front door from the inside by going in the back door. And by using this skip, we just skip that entire dungeon and go straight to the boss, or the mini boss anyway.
And I think the skip was like, it might have been discovered like last year as well.
Yeah, it's very recent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Before that, we used to do some crazy out of bound to actually manage to get the skip, and it was I think only 30 seconds faster. This is it's definitely much faster.
Kind of a shame because the out of bounds was pretty cool to watch too. Is you just sort of walk through a mountain and fall into into outside the world.
It was cool.
Yeah, but this is much faster.
And exploring out of bounds is actually just pretty cool in this game in general.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, as long as you don't fall out of bounds during Almondale fight, it's good. It somehow happened to me twice. Fall out of bounds during that fight.
Oh no!
Dang.
Yeah, wild stuff.
They are pretty close right now.
They are close. It's I think it's less than 2 minutes now.
Yeah. So, depending on how well the boss in this chapter goes down, we could have an overtake for Team Agnes.
Okay, so here comes the clip on Blue's side. See how well this goes.
Yeah.
So he's gonna try and not kill this thing and use the dying is the fastest way, but
it doesn't always.
If he doesn't die, he still has this emergency escape, which he's selecting, which is if you wait 15 seconds, will warp you back as if you died.
Yeah.
So if you're lucky, it will just shoot you and kill you right away. But in this case, use the emergency escape, and as you'll see, it warps you right into the mini boss room right here.
And it's very convenient.
That entire dungeon.
So after this mini boss goes down, you're able to actually bring your Skell in here, if you want.
Mm-hmm.
The lone scout.
Yeah, this is where you open the front door so your Skell can come in.
Yeah. And now the boss of the chapter is upon us, and it's the Prague Ares, and we're technically fighting Lao, who's piloting it, because, well, he betrayed the human race. He was secretly a Ganglian spy.
Oh my god.
Who could have seen it coming?
Who could have seen it?
There was foreshadowing that he was a traitor.
Not that much, but
well, some of the game, yeah. So phase 1, nothing really interesting. Phase 2 is where it is interesting. I believe in phase 2 we actually might take an intentional death if it activates the wrong mode. That way we can just reset the fight instantly.
It probably is faster too, trying to fight it out. But ideally we kill it instantly. So pray to Scout, as the notes say.
Okay.
Nice.
Scout did his job.
Yeah, and the good thing, is even if you do enough damage, if you get him down to 10%, that'll also be good enough because he'll activate Enraged instead of
you skip that particular phase. Yeah.
So basically, we come out here to the base.
To that boss.
To get the stolen data from Lao, and it's data about the Lifehold core.
Yeah, basically throughout this whole story, we've been trying to find the Lifehold core, because since we're all robots, there's some kind of computers that stores all our memories in our actual brain, and that computer is in the Lifehold core. So retrieving it is very important because we need to restore the power because otherwise we all die. And once we do, well, we can keep it safe and we're good. But for now, we just don't know where it is. And this data has the information of where it is. So it's going to turn out that there's a little bit more issues regarding the Lifehold core, but this is a whole different matter.
Yeah.
All right.
Scout cooperates.
Nice.
Scout cooperates. Nice.
Nice.
Yeah. This
Perfect
pianist
capital.
Scout, by the way, that both of them are using, the player who set it up, as I understand it, is one of the foremost, one of the most knowledgeable Xenoblade X players in the Japanese community. He's had literally thousands of hours logged in the game, maybe even maybe over 10,000. I don't know, but he's a huge amount. Basically, he knows all of the details. He's not a speedrunner, but in terms of just knowing all of the tech, all of the things. To do, just apparently one of the most respected players in the community.
Yeah. My hour count is kind of a meme as well. I've actually hit the hour count cap on my main profile,
Yeah.
and it actually stops counting at 9,999,
Oh, does it?
which is 10,000 hours. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So
Yeah, but it is really interesting to see that there's still people actively playing it online to this day. Just today, as I was as I mentioned, I was playing as a supporter earlier. So one thing that you'll notice if you play online, that other people's characters will show up in various places on the overworld and just have their standard quote. I encountered one today whose quote was, "Don't forget that you can only buy the DLC until March because the Wii U shop is closing down."
oh yeah.
I don't remember same globally or just in Japan, but yeah, at the end, sometime in March, the Wii U eShop is closing down. So if you want to buy the what was in Japan DLC, I think it's built into the Western release.
It
Yep,
is.
it is.
It is, yeah, but in Japan it was released separately as DLC. So saying, if you want to get the DLC, now's your chance. And just the fact that he had that quote referencing this, current event is just a sign that people are still playing it actively. And I just think that's really cool.
Yeah, it's insane.
This game is definitely a fun favorite. Like it's like just as we said before, the story isn't that great, but exploring it and the gameplay as well is so fun that I'm really not surprised that so many people still play this game so hard to this day.
Yeah, the battle system, once you really dig into it, it is really deep. And it's just definitely they could have done with better tutorials, better descriptions in game, etc. But the community has worked all that out now, and so it's just really there's so much you can do with it. It really is a great thing.
And now we're on chapter 12, which is the last chapter of the game, and Blue is heading toward the life fold right now. It's under attack by the ganglion.
And pray for Scout. Well,
And
Pray for Scout is also coming up on it as well.
Yeah. Chapter 12 is split into kind of like a boss gauntlet of sorts. So we have the Vita, who's split into two phases, and then we have like a horde of 10 chimeras, and the Phoenix is actually very, very useful for that fight.
Yep. Yeah.
Pretty much
That can go south pretty quickly if you don't have a Phoenix.
Oh yeah.
I think it went south pretty quickly in my casual run because I didn't have a Phoenix.
And then we have the final boss after that.
I wonder what that could be.
I wonder who that could be.
Yeah. So the Vita can actually be somewhat problematic as well, particularly in Phase 2, because it activates a shield satellite, which will make it invincible. So if you're too slow, you might have to destroy that satellite, which is in the center of the arena.
Very far from where you're fighting. And on
Yep.
Phase 1, at 75% HP bar, he's going to use a null reflect all aura. So if you don't manage to kill that as well, you're just going to die because you're going to take a billion damage from your
all
face.
your attacks get reflected back to you. Yeah.
Yeah, and the scout will die easily as well.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So the Vita Phase 1 ends at 50% HP like the previous phases of bosses. And, well, fun fact, actually, if you kill the Vita in Phase 1, you actually get 2 holofigures of the Vita.
Oh, you can actually kill him in Phase 1? What?
Yeah, you
interesting.
have to do like a ton of damage, though.
Right. If you kill him before the 50% trigger pops in, I imagine you get those rewards for killing.
Right, and then you also get like a little bit of EXP. You can also do that to Lao, who is the final boss.
Surprise!
Yep.
Who would have guessed?
So basically what's going to happen after the Chimera fight is Lao and Luxar are both going to fall into this pool of liquid, and it's going to form this monster of sorts. Which honestly has a pretty cool design, in my opinion.
It sure does.
Shame you won't have more than a fraction of a second to see it here.
Well, it
Scout
depends
does
on
his
how the
job.
scout RNG. Oh no!
Right, it does depend on how the scout does. But...
Miss the final kill.
Dang, yeah, that sometimes happens, especially if you're not in range of one of them.
Yeah, that's why I like to be in the middle of all of them, so that this doesn't happen.
So, for phase 2, Lau, I thought I'd mention this, but he normally drains your fuel, so it's intended to be like a ground fight for phase 2.
Yep. And interestingly enough, after chapter 12, because of that, your skill gets a fuel refuel completely for free,
Nice.
which is pretty neat.
Yeah.
And we're gonna get ready for time in just a second.
And get you some, like, 2 phases behind, and yet that's time.
And GG to Blue.
GG.
Yeah. And good luck to
Yeah, I'm gonna sign this
the
right
Xenoblade
behind
1
you.
runners.
Definitive Edition is